Oh, there you go. Okay, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Awesome. Is the volume good? All right. Guys, stick with me. This is going to be a wild ride. I know some of you are doing digestion, so waking up, but there's a lot to unpack here and not much time. So let's talk today why the team composition is a big deal, and I'll try to prove you. All right, so this is just me. I'll skip it very quickly for this. I'm an engineering manager in Pegasystems. We do stuff like Salesforce, our rivals. Someone from Salesforce here? Okay. And I'm currently living in Krakow. I started with DevOps, with support, went to DevOps, now in leadership. So that's just a bit about me. Let's skip that and let's talk about why should you care about team composition. And I want to make this a bit interactive so we don't fall asleep. So let's do a bingo, right? I'll say a few phrases, and if it resonates, you just put your hand up. Then you count the points. We'll have the results soon. So have some of you waited hours or days just for a different team, not yours, to unblock the work? Okay, everybody got a point. Have you had to save the day fixing something for yesterday? A lot of people have 2 points. Have you got redirected multiple times until you find whatever you need or whoever you need? Okay, a few people got 3 points. Final, do you get multiple emails, alerts, messages that have 0 action required or value? Okay, that's more or less what I expected. Let's go to the results. If you got 0, I don't think you work with IT or technology at all. If you got 1 or 2, that's a good sign, that's a green flag. But most of us, I feel bro, that's that stuff, and that's how it is. And there's multiple reasons for that. So there's a few studies, wow, that yellow is looking awful. But, trust me on this one, this is not a new topic. Some of the prior conversations we had, the presentations already talked a bit about that. And there's a bunch of stuff, like dependency bottlenecks, communication gaps, high cognitive, all this stuff causes frustration, right? Don't read it through. The point is that bad communication is awful, especially between teams, because then you don't have too much autonomy, and we'll talk about that. So what is the explanation? Why does that happen, right? What is underneath? And for this presentation's sake, before we dive into this rabbit hole, and I try to break it down for you why that is, there will be 2 main ways to define team composition. Because team composition can be how different teams interact with each other, and team composition can be how the 5 to 10 people on your team communicate with each other, right? So macro is bigger, right? Organization, how teams correlate. Micro is individuals inside the team. There will be 2 different sections about that. Let's start with macro, not micro. Let's go. So give me a pair of hands up if you heard about Conway's law before. Wow, that's more than expected. Okay, so Conway's law, by definition, is this very fancy text that says any organization that designs a system this definition is is a very hard way to say that if you have 4 groups working on a compiler, you get a 4-pass compiler. But I have the Conway's law is very, very important to understand to see why this matters in the end. And I have prepared a very practical set of examples so I can show you why. And let's imagine we're going to prepare a birthday party. And we have 3 teams, right? The first team takes care about the cake, second about the music, and the third one about the decoration. The challenge is that they live far away, remote working, COVID, all that, so they don't have time to prepare, and they need to pull up this party together. So the first scenario is chaos. That's when things goes wrong and where we don't apply the concepts that we'll talk about. So first team, they go to a local cake shop they know. They get a discount on this very beautiful jungle team cake. It tastes very good, looks good. So, good investment for the price. Okay, good for them. So, team number 2, they prepare a playlist with country songs because they realize they see the list of participants. Most of them say, yeah, I like country music, why not? So, good choice. They did some research. And team number 3 decorates the party with rockets and astronauts because they found some decoration remaining from last year. They're still in good shape, right? So, reutilization, they didn't spend time. That's amazing. In the end, the party looks something like this. So when you put all those things together, it doesn't look that good. So why that is, right? Let's talk about the root cause analysis for that. First, path of least resistance. It means that they started working, they hit the ground running, But they didn't have any strategy. They didn't have a destination to go, right? Nothing was set. There was no correlation. The second thing is that they did siloed decision making, which means they took very good decisions for themselves. And information was never exchanged, no common goal in sight, and that's how you get what you get in the end. Well, now let's fix that. Let's apply a very important concept to support Conway's law to fix this stuff. And after this Tarzan meets Cowboy Bebop party, they use what we call in the next year, there's another party, they decide to fix stuff, the inverse Conway maneuver. Very, very fancy name. Which means that the inverse Conway maneuver is when an organization intentionally designs its team structure to achieve a desired system architecture. In other words, organizations should evolve their team structure to achieve a desired architecture, which again is very fancy saying very fancy words to say we are specifically designing teams for an end goal. And how does that look in practice, right? After they apply this change. Basically, they agreed to a common party team beforehand, so they learned a lesson. Then they create the new teams based on what they want to do, on desired outcomes, not on what they are good at, like cakes or music, but rather what kind of experience they want to deliver. And they had some feedback points in between. And the new teams that they decided upon was cake and decorations, because they think those two go along together, and music and entertainment. But basically because they have people with different skills on those teams that can cater for these two needs. All right, so basically, team one, based on the data that the music team shared with them, they decided, yeah, maybe we should do a country like kind of party, right? Everybody likes it. And they find a matching team decor, so they strike a better deal. So good for them. Really nice cake. And then the second team, based on that, they removed the songs from the playlist, which were not really good for children. Some country songs got a bit wild, so they decided to remove that. And they come up with some activity like Cowboys and Bandits, just because it's looking like the team and it's fun for them, so they added up. So they enhanced the experience. As a result, much more coherent. So you see a party that makes sense, a party that looks cute, and kids can have a better time with it. Now, this is the really good takeaway for Conway's law. The main thing about it is not to fight it. That's one of the things that actually work as a law. So let me tell you now why this silly story, the silly example, really translates to real life and how can it impact you. First, typically our development teams, SRE teams, and altogether they are separated by function, right? Like front end, back end, DBA, app support. And sometimes by component or feature, like the search team, the logging team, the monitoring team, or whatever. And why shouldn't we separate by outcome instead? That's the proposition, right? To make a better explanation of outcome. Those are end-to-end experiences we desire to deliver, not functions, not products. That's the means we separate by what we want to achieve. And in a corporate lingo, that's just aligning the business goals with what customers needs. That's what your team will take care of. How does that look in practice? And this is according to Team Topologies. How many of you have read Team Topologies before? Okay, cool. That's awesome. Very good book. So there are your stream-aligned teams, your enabling teams, your complicated subsystem teams, and your platform teams. Electrolux guys, that's you. So we'll speak about those in detail. So first, let's talk about stream-aligned teams. They are assigned to have a specific flow of work. They need to deliver one thing and one thing only. So they have end-to-end ownership. They take care about dev to prod. They take care about operations. They care about quality, everything. They are cross-functional, so you need all sorts of people to achieve that. They're focused on outcomes, not on functions, not on products. And this is how it would look like. So, for example, you can have a product search team who takes care about overall search. You have a checkout process team that takes care about the check when you. This is like some sort of commerce example, right? On some user management, so they take care about all of this journey. And then, secondly, you have enabling teams. They assist by spreading knowledge, tools, and best practices. So basically, this team is some sort of internal consultants. For example, that can serve to speed up enablement. So the stream-aligned team can focus only on the value that needs to deliver. They help reduce cognitive load, keyword here, and they are dynamically assigned based on needs. So you don't need this team to be forever with some stream-aligned team, just when they're needed. How does that looks in action? So, for example, let's say here that the checkout process team needs to have some compliance challenges. They need to store that data. So what do they do? Instead of, I don't know, wasting many cycles, many sprints, figuring out the stuff, they have their internal team for compliance to go into their processes and help them enable that faster, so they don't need to worry about it. Then third team, complicated subsystem teams. They are the guys who are true experts. They are very heavily working on stuff. They're super complex, like algorithms and so on. They are formed by SMEs. They focus on complex problem solving, and they also help reduce cognitive load. This is the pattern. We need to make sure stream-aligned teams are focused only on what brings value. And this is the recommendation engine team on the top. You cannot see very well, sorry about that, but they would be some sort of algorithm training team, and they will be assigned to do only that, so the stream-aligned team can focus on other stuff. Finally, you have your platform teams. You guys know those. They are focusing on automation and reusability, delivering an amazing DevX is their end goal, their outcome, and they also help reduce cognitive load, taking off the load, right? So they are literally on the bottom, like serving everybody with their templates, with their automation pipelines, and etc., making sure those teams are delivering fast. So according to team topologies, that's also from the book, they have mostly three ways to collaborate, to interact with each other, right? Collaboration, facilitation, and X as a service. Basically, the collaboration is when they need to team up together to do something together. For example, the checkout process needs to automate the process, so the checkout, so they get the user account team and just work together for a period of time to automate that. In this compliance team, I already give you some examples. We can have it for some audit needs, for example. And the X as a service, it means that this team is providing a specific thing that will be utilized by many teams, right? It's a one-way street. So it can be pipelines, it can be automation, and you can see in this example that also collaboration and X as a service can coexist together. So we can have more than one mode of operation. All right, so you talked a lot about that. How does that affect me? I still don't get it. So how to understand in an individual level, it's time to get micro. So let's talk about cognitive load first. Cognitive load is a total amount of mental effort using on the working memory. That's like your CPU brain, right? Your own brain as a CPU. Like coding, managing tools, requirements, all those tasks, they actually add up and make you mentally tired. So you can think about that as this graph shows. When you commit some small hotfix on Friday, that's your brain when it comes to cognitive load. And this is required for us to understand, finally we got there, the hero anti-pattern. Why we should care about heroes. First of all, let's define a hero, right? Sometimes hero is a good thing. I mean, they're saving the world, they're the good guy. And sometimes a hero is not a very good thing, right? Sometimes a hero is questionable. And when it comes to anti-pattern, the hero is someone who is working always under very high cognitive load. This guy is solving everything. He has no time to do outside of saving production. He is likely to suffer from stress, burnout, work, long hours. Don't worry, I'll not ask for hands now. But they usually cannot cooperate effectively because they are too busy saving prod. And this is interesting because of their reputation. They get some sort of known by the business, and they are, again, perpetuating the cycle because this is the guy who resolves everything. Bring him in, let's fix this. And of course, they tend to leave their current company in the longer term because of all those bad things. And sometimes IT altogether, like this guy who became a goose farmer after 22 years. But jokes aside, I don't know if this guy quit because he was tired of it, but, you know, goose farming looks good. Okay, so how do we avoid the hero, live enough to become a goose farmer? First, well-distributed and well-scoped teams. This kind of clarity enhances communication and takes away all this cognitive load that you shouldn't be handling, right? Using the help of platform and complicated subsystem teams, offloading all this stuff, all this setup, all these things that you shouldn't really need to care, that accelerates and makes you more focused and better using your cognitive load. Ensuring the teams have autonomy and ownership, because even if you are a very good engineer, if you depend on other people to approve stuff, you depend on other teams to do silly things that slow you down, that's actually taking your cognitive load as well. Properly distributing work among team members. So even if you got new team members, everybody should have a piece of the cake, so it's equal, and not releasing on Friday. Generally, don't do that. That's too crazy. Okay, now we're talking how we can apply principles to build better teams, right? And I want to talk about two things to consider here that usually are presented separately. You will probably all know that, but let's tie them together. First is Dunbar's number. So this is a psychological study from many, many years ago, which talks that the cognitive limit of a human being that they can hold relationships with, like meaningful relationships, knowing their names and talking to them often and so on, is 150 people. And on the other hand, you have Jeff Bezos saying that we need to feed a team that with 2 pizzas. What those things have in common, right? Why does this apply to us in the long term? This graph shows it very, very well. You need to communicate with people on your team. Of course, this is a bit of extrapolation. You don't communicate with everyone every time, but you can see how this scales up very fast. The more people you add, the more coordination cost, the more cognitive load you have to deal with. And I very specifically mention teams here as well-sized because there's really no silver bullet. I cannot go and tell you have 5 people on your team and that's it. That's not really something you can generalize, but you need to have well-sized teams, and it's safe to say the bigger, the worse in this sense. So better cognitive load, more efficient communication, very clean team boundaries. You'll know exactly who's taking care of what and what teams take care of what, and easier cultural cohesion. When you have a smaller team, people connect to each other, they bond, and this makes work much more productive, much more fun. And thus, the conclusion about that. Probably I am a team. No, the jokes aside, 2 pizzas doesn't kill anyone. I want you to take away from this speech actual actions, right? Because you just heard a lot of theory, a lot of about stuff that comes from books. I want you to go away with something you can do. So I'll separate in 2 parts. First, if you are some sort of team leader or someone who has influence on the organization, can actually help those changes more actively, right? First, you should go deeper into Conway's law, know its implications. This applies to every single industry. It's not just technology. This is very human concept, and it actually works. Second, do some experiments. Go micro, go micro. Shuffle people around on your team. Split into 2 teams. Merge some teams. Like, do this stuff. Measure the results. Advocate to your leadership about these concepts, because sometimes if you don't have too much autonomy on how to shape those things, you might have to go on a few additional hoops and talk to more people about it so you can have some buy-in. Rethink how to plan for outcomes. This will also be helping you to deliver better quality stuff. So you can outsource and put other teams to work on different things, and you can focus on the value. And of course, books, ebooks, audiobooks, YouTube videos, Coursera, whatever rocks your boat, as long as you keep learning about this stuff. And I have a few recommendations to go through in the end, but certainly verify there's very good material on that. Now, as a developer, as an SRE, as a DevOps engineer, what can you do? Because you can do many things. The first is inform, influence, speak up. As a member of the team, you have some say on things you do. So definitely think about this, speak up if you see any problems, and bring it up. The second thing is, as a senior, I suppose a lot of you are, you should stretch your soft skills. As we already heard on the human API talk, it was wonderful, by the way, this is very, very important, because you having a way to influence on this kind of decisions will impact you in the long run. Join the interview process for new joiners. When you're adding people to your team, you're effectively putting someone else to manage, someone else you need to communicate through. So even if you don't do the interview yourself, be there, listen to that person, have some feedback because you will be working with them. Also, think about ownership as resolving problems, not creating features. So when you get a user story or when you get a ticket, you're not supposed just to think how I can get rid of it before the sprint ends. Rather, how can this problem never occur again? How can I resolve this issue for good? And finally, this is quite cool. Depends on the culture of your company, of course, but try some internal rotations. Go for a team for a month. Try new experiences. Try open source. Seeing how other teams communicate and are structured will help you have a better vision, a better live experience of what I'm talking about. So, last takeaways. First, team composition is extremely context specific. So there's no Googling how I make my team better. That doesn't happen. You need to see case by case, understand your needs, understand your case, your culture on the company, etc. Second, Conway's law works, period, hands down. Third, be intentional and thoughtful when you introduce changes. This is very important. People don't like change, human beings, engineers mostly as well. So when you introduce change, at least have a goal you want to measure and a very clear understanding of what you're doing. But by all means, do experimentation because it's important. Consider how the teams interact in your organization right now. Just draw it. Just pull it a lucid chart or a pen and a pencil, a pen and a paper, and draw it. That will help you understand where is the bottlenecks. Because any time spent on non-bottleneck activities is wasted time. And the bottleneck might be how your teams are distributed. So, you don't worry to read about that. I put some sources you can go through based on the studies I mentioned during the slides. My 4 books recommendation on this topic, team topologies being the most relevant here. Dynamic reteaming, Empowered, and the 5 dysfunctions of a team touch on different aspects of this, but are also very good books. And of course, I would like to thank you so much for being here today, choosing the talk. You can find the GitHub repo with slides and me on LinkedIn. Don't look too much of my GitHub. It's like an onion. Every time I see it, I cry. So, yeah. And that's it. I would like to open for questions. Don't be shy. Come on. My friend Vlad, thank you. Shout-outs to Vlad. He gave me this clicker. I cannot be standing and clicking stuff, so thank you, Vlad.
Thank you for the presentation, and actually I found it really good that you have references you can look into. My question is more in respect of the team members. You said that team members should be empowered to speak up. Mm-hmm. So what will be your advice to people who, again, like maybe have influences or manage people to encourage their team members to provide feedback? Because again, like you're not always able to accommodate it. There may be different reasons why you can't, maybe company direction, maybe something else. As a manager, you not necessarily have to agree with all decisions you're making. But how would you advise to maintain this empowerment of providing input, even though it's not always kind of actioned on?
That's a very, very good question. And I'll try to give you a very practical answer to that. So, of course, it depends on the level of seniority, what this person is doing, but usually empowerment is very tied to autonomy and very tied to how the perception of other people about this person is, right? So maybe identifying the challenge by talking to this person, seeing why they don't speak up, because I would guess two possibilities might be occurring, right? Either they don't have autonomy to do what they're doing, so they always need to ask people about it. They don't feel comfortable owning that. And the second is that they might have some shyness or they're introverts. So it really depends on those two scenarios. One way to resolve the first is to give them something smaller, some clear responsibility that they can fix by themselves. See if that will help them bring this stuff up and be more active, because they might just not feeling the ownership of what they're doing. And the second one is checking with other teammates of how is their perception, coaching this person to try to do good questions or trying to understand the reason. So there's never a straight answer, but those are two things you can probe for that can be leading to that. No worries. Any other questions in the audience? Okay, so with that, I would like again to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate and have fun on the next ones. We can grab a coffee if you want. Thank you.